City Current. Produced by Dakota Media Access. In-depth discussion with Bismarck and Mandan city officials. Watch on Government Access Channel 602 HD or tune in to Radio Access 102.5 FM. Always local, always current.
Welcome to City Current. We're here in the studios at Dakota Media Access. I'm Mary Van Sickle. I'm here with Jason Timonek, City Administrator for the City of Bismarck, because it's a Bismarck edition of City Current. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Always my pleasure to be here.
February 12th, we're right in it. We got some sub-zero
The whole state was
days.
below zero this morning
Dang.
as I was listening to Dave Thompson call out the weather
This
bright
is-
and early.
This is where, we get tested.
It's always cold.
Yep.
Yep.
This is it. It's hard to believe a couple weeks ago it was, 48 degrees one
I
day.
know. There was
you
bare
know, a couple
grass in our
days.
yards for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. This too shall pass.
Yep.
We will come out of it.
This makes me look forward to June.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking forward till April. I mean,
Well, that's true.
So anyway, we're here to talk, as always,
Mm-hmm.
about the City Commission meeting last night. You had a pretty light agenda. There wasn't a lot going on.
Not
But
a
we
lot,
have-
but we had a couple presentations, and I think we found a few things to talk about, and then we've got other current things to talk about. too.
announcements, big
Yes.
hires yesterday.
New
We might as well
faces.
start out with that. You got a
Okay.
new Public Works Director.
Yep. On the
Wanna talk
utility
about that?
operations side, Michael Mart is his name, and Michael's position was confirmed last night by the City Commission with a unanimous vote. A little different process this time for hiring the department director position. Historically, it has been the City Commission that has hired all the directors, at least to the best of my recollection in my close to 19 years with the city. It has historically been the City Commission would conduct the interviews. There were other parts of the application process, but that final face-to-face interview was always done between the mayor and the four commissioners with the applicants. And this time around, the process has changed, and what enabled the process to change, back in January of last year, the ordinance was amended to essentially put the administrator in the decision-making position to help craft a process to hire department directors. And so
But it didn't eliminate
it did
the
not.
commission.
Nope, which
Not-
is why we had Commissioner Zenker make the motion last night, or we heard him make the motion to offer the position to Michael, and it was seconded by Mayor Schmitz. Both of those individuals were part of that interview process, and so Commissioner Zenker, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I'm interrupting, and I'm sorry, but Zinker is the portfolio holder, and that's why.
Yes,
Yes,
and
okay.
he led that face-to-face interview with the other applicants, and so it was appropriate for him to take that lead as the portfolio holder for the department, but also having the mayor there as the president of the Board of City Commissioners. The mayor also holds a portfolio for HR, Human Resources, and so we had our Human Resources Director, Leanne Schmidt, as part of the interview, and then City Engineer Gabe Schell. And very important for Gabe to be there because City Engineering and Public Works, both on the utility operations side and the service operations side, work together a lot.
Yeah.
And so for Gabe to be there and add some perspective, add some professional observations
Makes
and
sense.
just general awareness of how these entities will interact was so important. And so the five of us went through the face-to-face interview process. Again, applicants took the general management in-basket test, which is an online assessment that we require of all the higher level positions. And there was also an accomplishment survey, which was evaluated by other professional engineers in the community. And so,
And that helped narrow it down
It
to
did.
the final two.
yep, we ended
Okay.
up with two applicants that we interviewed face-to-face. And Mr. Mart is a current employee within the city engineering department. And actually, for the last several months, 6 months or greater, he's been working a lot with Public Works utility operations because of the scale of some of the construction projects that are coming.
Yeah, there's a lot going on down there.
We're doing a lot of improvements at the water treatment plant, and for Michael to be able to intercept some of that extra work that would have otherwise fallen on the water plant superintendent or some of the staff there or the director from Michelle Closey, Michael can come in and with his expertise really be in the middle of those contractors and those contracts and the staff and everything that's going on. And frankly, a lot of that is what led to his success in this overall process
Sure.
is because he has been immersed in utility operations.
Sounds like it'll be pretty much a seamless transition then.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's great.
There's always some ripples with transition. That happens, certainly with Michelle leaving. Lots of knowledge, not just the department, but her career prior to coming to the city. She was with the State Water Commission, so that's been very instrumental with legislative processes and just Mr. Mart's got big shoes to fill, no doubt about it, but at the same time, best qualified candidate, enthusiasm,
Good deal
no doubt about it, and I think he works well with the team. There are a number of superintendents or next level supervisors underneath that director position, and that's really the team that builds everything. They're the ones that are helping lead those operations and leading those teams of workers that are there every day in and out. So
sounds like a lot of confidence in him as you move forward as administrator and certainly to the commission last
Certainly.
night. Unanimous.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
move forward. Another hire yesterday. Big position as well.
City attorney.
Yeah.
One of the 3 appointed positions in our organization.
So it took a different process,
It
correct?
did.
Okay.
This one went back to the city commission having the full face-to-face interview. Again, though, general management in-basket test and scores were evaluated along with an accomplishment survey that was scored by local attorneys, subject matter experts. All of those scores get shared with the commissioners, and then ultimately it comes down to that face-to-face interview. And pleased to say our internal acting city attorney, former assistant city attorney Julie Meese, who's been with the city for about 4 years, came out with the offer to be the next city attorney for the city of Bismarck, and Julie graciously accepted.
Yeah, good deal.
So
Another seamless transition, really.
Hopefully.
I mean, you are all familiar with her. She lives on the 4th floor
she's right
with all
across
of
the
you.
hall from our office.
Okay.
In the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks that she's been in this acting role, I think it's been a full immersion for her too. Primarily, prior to this, much of her time was spent across the street working with municipal court, prosecuting the Class B misdemeanors and traffic offenses. Well, with the departure of former city attorney Janelle Combs in December, Julie became the acting. I guess it's actually been 2 months. She got a pretty good experience of what the other role is in the legal department. We have just one city attorney, we have 2 assistant city attorneys, and then there's a small handful of support staff as well. But with Julie doing a lot of her work with municipal court, I think these last couple of months has been a real eye-opener for her. It's given her some exposure to some things that she hadn't seen before, but it's also given many of the directors and the staff a chance to get to know her and work with her, and I think there has been a lot of support internally for the work that she does and the new perspective that she's bringing in, and she doesn't know everything. We don't expect her to either.
Sure.
There's going to be a lot to learn,
Yeah.
but congratulations to her,
Yeah.
Congratulations to Michael. We are fully staffed at the department director level, so that's great.
Yeah.
That puts a smile on my face.
Absolutely.
I need to say that I am very, very fortunate to get to work with some of these people, with all of these people, because they are so talented. And this process just reaffirmed that we have great staff throughout the organization.
Yeah.
So
Good deal. Everybody's going to hit the ground running, sounds like.
we're going to have to.
Yeah.
Got a lot of work to do.
All right. Well, let's move into the regular part of the agenda last night. Actually, this would be the consent agenda. I don't believe anything was pulled for discussion last night out of consent.
Just after the motion was made to approve, Commissioner Zenker did note that one of the projects that City Engineering is applying for is a grant project, and with it being a federal grant, there could be some disruption in that process
okay.
with the changes at the federal level.
Sure.
We're seeing, obviously,
Okay.
nationwide, there are some
All right.
impacts. It wouldn't cause the project to cease. It would potentially cause a delay
pause.
in the application
Okay.
process. But
Sounds
otherwise,
good.
yes, you're right. Everything was approved
Okay.
in one fell swoop.
Well, we wanted to talk about a couple of the things in the consent agenda. One of them, interesting, Bismarck Sign Company came forward with a request for a letter of support for a loan from the Opportunity Fund. I think it's interesting. We do have a map that we could pop up. Interesting that they're taking over a fairly notable building in the community, the old UPS Center.
Former UPS on
Yeah.
Franklin Avenue. I guess this would be up in the northeast side of town. So for Bismarck Sign Company, obviously growing,
Yeah.
increasing their operations. And the North Dakota Opportunity Fund loan program, the letter of support that we offer from the city is something that Bismarck Sign Company will use in their application for a flex pace loan
Sure.
through the North Dakota Opportunity Fund.
So again, this is right up at Franklin and Centennial, very, very busy intersection. Nice to see a reuse of an existing building.
11,000 square foot building and
Yeah.
about an 80,000 square foot property, so not quite 2 acres, but yeah, definitely great when we've got an opportunity for an adaptive reuse of a building rather than it sitting idle and
Yeah.
sitting empty. There's nothing better than having life in that building because then you've got people
Sure.
keeping an eye on it, maintenance going on. Obviously, they're going to be making some improvements here, so good for them.
Yeah. Parking Authority, new appointment, a member that got, I think it was Carl Holwegner, resigned his position. So Parking Authority has will have a new face
Yep.
at the table.
Mr. John Berger, and I believe Mr. Berger represents one of the financial institutions downtown.
Okay.
And what does the Parking Authority do? Well, Parking Authority maintains and operates the public parking structures. And so we've got 3 parking ramps in a general vicinity and then the ramp on 3rd Street. And they've also got a couple of surface lots that they maintain and manage. And it should be noted that the retail stores that are on the ground floor of the Parkade building on Broadway are also in a building that is
Yeah.
operated by the Parking Authority as
lot
well.
of-
So
As someone who, leased a parking spot for many, many years with staff in those lots,
yep.
people rely on that, so.
As
good
I was
management.
walking here, or walking to my truck today to come to this appointment, I noted how full the parking ramp really is. I park in the ramp on 6th Street, directly across from the Bell Mayhews and the World War Memorial Building. And there are many, many days when the red light says full, meaning
Really?
there's no
Okay.
available hourly
Wow.
parking. Those of us that have a monthly pass, we're able to use it. But that's a great sign when you've got capacity in your parking ramps. It also indicates that we might need to start talking about where would the next ramp be.
Well, and if people are watching the Parking Authority meetings, which we have online and go live with, I believe they're meeting tomorrow.
It's on the radar.
Yeah, they continue to have that conversation about where is the next
Yep.
parking ramp structure going in, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Last thing under consent agenda, and we won't get into too much detail here because there's a lot of variations. These are street improvement districts that came forward. They were both approved. I hate to say both because the first project, I think it was 585 is the number or something, had 9 different units in the community that
Yep.
will now go through some improvements this summer. Supposedly go through, but this is just the first step. This is a resolution of necessity that moves forward. Commissioner said, yes, please move these forward, but there's a lot of variation in location and what improvements will be done.
Yep, it's everything from the Sonnet Heights area in northeast Bismarck up around that Furniture Row part of town, Skyline Boulevard and 19th Street. So then we jump on the east side of Highway 83 and we're over by the North Walmart in that area. But then we get into some of the older parts of town, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th Street between Boulevard and Avenue C. So that's just a little hint of some of the districts that are out there. But for anybody that has curiosity as to what the city engineering is planning for the summer, it's about 271 blocks of street maintenance. And if you'd like to see these things firsthand, go to bismarcknd.gov/streets. And there's a very comprehensive webpage where you'll find the process, all the districts that are identified. Again, we're just getting started. This is the time of the year where these projects become talked about. They're
Right.
introduced.
Well, and again, this was the step last night. Commission said, move it forward,
Right.
which means the next step is design work. Then all property owners are notified
Right.
in the general area of this, or anyone that would be potentially special assessed for some of the projects. I think the big one we want to talk about, though, is 3rd Third
South
Street from Main down to Expressway was another street improvement district in itself.
Yeah.
And again, all the way from north to south, there will be a variety of different improvements made, and in some cases, a complete reconstruction in some areas.
ADA curb ramps, driveways, curb and gutter, just general concrete maintenance along the way. And it's about 3,700 feet from one end to the other.
Sure.
And of course,
It's going to be disruption.
it will be. The contractors, the city will accommodate the businesses as best we can, making sure that there's still access to these businesses. We understand that these can be challenging times, but for those of us that live here, 3rd Street, obviously a busy corridor, commercial on both sides, gateway to one of the mall entrances. We've got 5 lanes of traffic.
Yeah.
It's a big street.
For sure. Yeah, and it's been a while since some major construction down there, so I'm sure it's due. But
It's due.
there'll be more notice as this moves
course.
forward. So
Yep.
if you're just joining us, this is City Current. Jason Timonik is here from the city of Bismarck. I'm Mary Van Sickle, and we are recording this program on Wednesday, February 12th, and it will repeat on our systems. It's always online as well up until next week. So moving into the regular agenda, there was a presentation by Jim Campites of Light Spring. We know Jim well. He's an alumni of Dakota Media Access, so it's nice to see him succeeding in his new venture. But Light Spring has grown over the last few years, primarily a solar panel company that has helped a lot of native projects down in Fort Yates and different places around the state, putting in solar panels and doing some education in the process. But this is exciting. We have a map that we could pop up because we want to show where their new building will be. This is down in the south area of Bismarck.
Southeast side of town in the industrial area, kind of Bobcat Acceleration Center area for landmarks.
Yeah, and close to that, that South Walmart, near the airport as well. But their plan is to build a building down there and start building batteries.
Battery energy storage systems.
Yeah.
And they would be deployed throughout the state, the region, and the nation. And the BESS, as they call it, will participate in virtual power plant configuration that allows owners to earn revenue for intelligent deployment of resources. I'm reading from their application there.
Yeah, it was very interesting, really innovative. Nice to see these kinds of activities starting in the community. Jim made a couple of points when they started out, finding that we have more sunlight here for solar than they do in Florida because they have more rain and more clouds.
Sure.
We have that sunlight. It has nothing to do with temperature. It's the ability of the panels to capture the light is what's more important. So there's a lot of potential, but also noted that North Dakota was the last in developing these alternatives. So good to see some of this innovation going on. So
and this group, I think an important distinction with this group, we hear this occasionally with economic development, primary sector.
Definitely.
And what does primary sector mean? Primary sector generally means the business will be bringing new money to the region. Well, how do you do that? You sell your product to places that aren't Bismarck, basically, is what this means.
Export.
And so, when I read the application about deploying battery systems throughout the state, the region, and the nation, that's exactly what we're talking about. But being headquartered in Bismarck is so important for us because that revenue that they're generating comes back here, supports their business, supports their workers, supports their families, continues to grow the operation. That's why the city of Bismarck values these types of projects and why they choose to incentivize them.
Yeah. They went through the Vision Fund initially. That was approved, and that's why it went to the entire commission last night. Unanimously said, yes, please move it forward. So look forward to seeing the progress on that project.
Wish them all the best of luck.
For sure. And then you gave a legislative update last night.
Yeah, kept it kind of brief compared to the last one. There's 30-some bills that are on our list of things that could be impactful or influential for municipal operations. But 2 that we really kind of focused on last night. This week has been a little less hectic. Last week I spent a lot of time up at the Capitol, going to hearings, participating in hearings, providing testimony, answering questions. Glad to do all of that. It's a good experience, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to help share information, to help guide some of these decisions that are made. But the two that we talked about last night at the commission, House Bill 1176, this is the one that Representative Mike Nathy has introduced. This is the one that talks about property tax for municipal governments and home rule charter. I'm sorry, not home rule charter adjustment. Homestead tax credits are in this one as well. So that's another interesting facet to House Bill 1176. But the piece that we as municipal government and other cities are most interested in is this idea that there will be a cap on the general fund property tax collection. Our commission hasn't taken an official position. There's been a lot of discussion. I think there's an understanding that a cap is inevitable. We can live with that, we can understand that, but how that cap is derived, where it comes from, I think that's an important part of the formula that needs to be considered. If it's just a simple 3% fixed cap, we can demonstrate that our budgets over the last 10 years would be woefully inadequate at 3% in some situations. Not every year, but in most years, yes. Mm-hmm. We as a large city are very fortunate. We have other means to generate revenue, whether it be through fees for services or grant applications or whatever the case might be. But some of the amendments that are coming forward, they're proposing a potential 10-year opt-out if the voters approved. If a city asks, hey, 3% is going to be tough for us, here's why. The voters could support opting out of that 3% cap and then having a little more local control. There's also some discussion of maybe there's a different index instead of a 3%. So we're not done yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't even hit crossover. We're a couple of weeks before all the bills flip from one side to the other. So certainly no need to panic, but definitely still staying engaged and part of the conversation when we can be.
Do you think, you mentioned the homestead tax credit, do you anticipate some changes to that structure?
I believe so, and I believe so because it was part of the governor's overall proposal on day one when he introduced his state of the state and his vision for the next few years. He was working towards this idea of a zero property tax through a number of tools, a number of credits or whatever the case might be. And so I think that ends up being part of the successful formula if the bigger vision is to be achieved. But again, this is up to the state policymakers, and hopefully they're just continuing to take on as much information as they can to make the most well-informed decision for everybody. There's 355 cities in North Dakota, and we all live under the state law when it becomes the law. Mm-hmm. So it's not an easy task by any means.
No. So moving on, Land Development Code update last night.
We did.
Can you give a little? It was fairly lengthy. It was pretty detailed, but this was basically an update. Right. No action taken.
Right. Projects should finish at the end of the year, 2025. Land Development Code. What does this mean? This is the long-awaited, much-anticipated overhaul of the zoning code, Title 14, which is the rules and regulations that basically govern land development. We're talking about setbacks. We're talking about land uses, special uses. This is really the bread and butter of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so we've got some consultants that are walking us through a major overhaul. What I heard is we will have a new look, a new feel to the zoning code. It will have illustrations, which will make things much easier to convey. Trying to describe a setback in font, in text only, can be challenging. Sure. So to have visual representation is important. That's a really minor piece of this bigger picture. What we heard last night is some of the zoning districts that we have in place will have a different look to them. They will be more responsive to what is really in the neighborhood. Obviously, we've got an older part of town, the Cathedral District, where we've got a variety of lot sizes. Many of them are quite smaller than conventional lots in today's world. How do we legitimize those lots? How do we encourage those infill and redevelopment projects to have the same look and feel in that neighborhood, but yet be responsive to what are the developers building out on the edges of town right now?
Sure.
And you'll hear from many of the developers that the average lot size is probably 12, 15, even 20,000 square feet in some cases, because you're seeing 3 and 4 garage stalls and 2-story homes, and it's a much different density. It's a much different pattern. But then we're also hearing a lot of desire to see more neighborhood type uses, more walkable things, more amenities for people so they don't have to get in their car and drive across town to go get a cup of coffee. If you can have a walkable local coffee shop embedded within your neighborhood, I think a lot of us would agree that's a pretty nice thing to have in some situations.
I would think the challenge is developing this code so it satisfies all of these concerns.
With 153 years of growth and change, it's not going to be easy, which is why we brought in the help of other professionals.
Sure, because they've seen these projects go
Exactly.
forward around the country, so they're taking hopefully best practices. But it will come back. The consultant also mentioned the stakeholders group, that all of this is being threaded through before
Absolutely.
it gets to the commission.
Yeah,
So
we do.
it's got a few iterations to go yet.
Yeah, we do very little without community involvement when
Yeah.
it comes to stakeholder groups, especially something as dynamic as this, because there is without a doubt there will be consequences to some of these decisions. And I don't want to make it sound like they're negative consequences. There will be changes, but allowing people to be a part of that process, hearing their thoughts, taking that into consideration and building that into the end of the plan, I think it does great to create buy-in and an understanding of these are the rules and you helped form them, so
Right.
here we go.
Well, and you want them there from the beginning because
Absolutely.
this is expensive and time-consuming, and rewriting this, and you don't want to get to the commission table and then have a line at the podium of people objecting to it. It's got to be fleshed out well, hopefully before that. So
And even to go one step past that, to just simply come out of the darkness and say, here's a brand new code, we would spend more time fighting over it than we would actually implementing
absolutely.
it. So
Yeah.
it would be wonderful in the end if everybody can stand together and say, this process was great, this process worked, I felt heard, there are changes as a result of my participation, and in the end, we've got a nice uniform land development code that will get this town dialed in for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how long has it been since it really has been looked at?
Over 40 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think in the early 80s was the last overhaul, and then there were original iterations where we've talked about this here. Bismarck was one of the first cities with zoning, but nothing as monumental of a change like this in 40 years.
Yeah. Well, more to come on that.
Definitely.
When do you anticipate potentially a final report?
I believe I heard the report should be done by the end of the year. Final
Okay.
recommendations and deliverables and
Got a
all
lot
of
more
that. So
work.
we'll probably hear from the consultant at least once more before the
Sure.
end. I would
Okay.
assume they'll come back with another significant update.
Sounds good. That wrapped up the meeting last night. Just a couple of extras. Again, your Citizen Academy, you're right in the thick of it right now. We have a couple pictures we can pop up of the class at the Bismarck Airport, going through some of the
In the big conference room, we
Conference
started out
room.
there, and Greg Haug, airport director, and Matthew Raminzi. Matthew is recently appointed as the assistant airport
that's
director.
right.
So
I saw that. Yeah.
I shared with the group, Matthew still had his shine on because I think it was Monday that he had accepted the job. And Thursday we were out there learning from Matthew and Greg.
They were in the conference room, and then they were in the.
And then we were down in the baggage handling
down
area.
In the baggage
So
handling.
we were below and behind where you leave your bags with the ticketing agents, and we saw how it gets processed through the conveyor belts and some
That's
of the
interesting.
equipment that the baggage handlers use. And the baggage handlers are not city employees. The ticketing window people are not city employees. The only city staff that are out there are really tied to the building and the operations around the building. Snow removal, landscaping, just general building maintenance, and then obviously the administrative side. But there's a vast majority of people that are third-party
Yeah.
operators.
Yeah. So how many weeks left?
We have, I think this is week 6 on Thursday, so tomorrow, the 13th, we will be spending our time between engineering and community development. Those two departments are downtown at City County Building, and their offices are across the hall from one another. They work very much together when it comes to development, as we've been talking about land development code and things like that. City engineering is in the same meetings as the planners when a new entity walks in the door and says, we want to come to Bismarck.
Sure.
And so having these two share an evening, it's appropriate. They really work well together, and what we'll do is we'll actually split the group in two because the conference rooms aren't very big. So we'll have half the group start with Gabe, the other half of the group will start with Ben. Partway through, we'll flip, and then they'll learn about the other side. So that one will be fun. And then week 7 coming up next week, that's, I think, one of the highlights for a lot of people. We will be heading down to the water treatment plant. So
Yeah,
everybody
we've
gets to
talked
see
about that
how
before.
the drinking water gets made, and for anybody that hasn't been in a plant, a large production plant like that, it is a wonderful experience. We've got some legacy infrastructure that's been there for 100 years, and we've got some brand new stuff that's replacing the old stuff, and some tremendously talented and passionate people when we get into that building.
It's an important function. We talk about it a lot.
Critical, absolutely vital.
Water and sewer, gotta have it.
Yep.
So just a reminder for our listeners, this primary tax credit is, you have to apply.
$500 on your primary residence.
Please do that before March 31st. I understand that's the deadline.
And one more thing, if I can add a little tidbit, for anybody that's wondering what's going on with the event center. We hear that question
Yes.
sometimes. We've talked about consultants. We've talked about RFPs. And where are we with all of that? Well, I'm pleased to say that today we have 2 consultants in town right now meeting with event center staff, walking the building, learning all the systems, meeting with stakeholders, meeting with building users, operators, vendors. This is all part of their information gathering process. These are gentlemen that have been nationwide, in and out of facilities, past experiences building operators, and ultimately what we're trying to do here is come back with some recommendations on the best management system and the best way to operate this facility.
Are these 2 separate organizations, representatives from different groups, or they're traveling?
Two gentlemen from one organization from different cities in the
Okay.
United States, but they work for Jones Lang LaSalle, or
Okay.
more commonly referred to as JLL. They are here. There's other members of the team that we've been meeting with virtually, and they're conducting one-on-one stakeholder meetings and things like that. But this is really going to be a tremendous opportunity for them to just see everything at the event center, and not only see the facility, but also the annual agricultural show. The Ag Show is leaving. Today it's its last day, and then tomorrow is the spin-up for the Bismarck Tribune Sports Show.
Oh,
so
boy.
they're going to be watching how this facility functions,
A big
moving
flip.
vehicles and agricultural equipment in and out, and the staff and everything that goes with it. So that's all part of this evaluation. And what we will hear in April will be recommendations on, here are some operating models, here are some operational things you could be doing, here are some, they're calling them P1, kind of those primary indicators, those primary things
okay.
that we should be focusing on to bring to Bismarck, because
Sure.
we've got the right facilities, they bring people, they make money for the building, but we also understand everybody locally wants to see the entertainment. They want to see the fun and the activation in the arena, because that's where the cool
Right.
stuff happens. We'll hear from that too. And how do we lure in some of these top tier talents that we can support and that our community will enjoy? I mean, obviously we can't get Taylor Swift. I'm sorry. We don't have enough seats. She's not even going to think about Bismarck.
Yeah.
At our maximum capacity, we're about 10,000 seats.
You would have to charge a whole lot more
Boy,
for Taylor Swift tickets to
we
bring her
couldn't.
in there.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
We would love to do that.
Sure.
We have our
No,
limits.
it's not
and
realistic.
So what is the right mix for activities in the event center?
Will this group be looking also at the potential for a hotel or a convention center in the area, or is that totally separate?
That's a totally separate
Okay.
RFP that we have out. We've actually done an amenities RFP. We've put out the call to say, if you have an idea, if you have a proposal, if you have a plan to develop a hotel, a banquet facility, a kitchen service, whatever that might look
Okay.
like, we're expecting those at the end of this month,
Okay.
in February. So there's a lot of activity.
Separate but related.
Yes, both focused on the event center, but 2 completely exclusive projects from each other. But I guess what I would like the audience to understand is that you might not see things happening, but please know that we are working really hard right now to come back at the end of April with as much information as we can to help the commissioners start making decisions on where are
Yeah.
we going with the event center in the next 3 to 5 years.
Sounds like they're digging in pretty deep over there today.
We also have, if I can just take another minute, a local architect, Jeff Ubel, who is very knowledgeable with the event center and many of its facets. Jeff is performing a comprehensive study of all the studies that have been done, all the work that has been deferred, all the systems that need attention. Jeff and his team will be coming in at the end of April, also giving that report to the city commissioners to say, here are the immediate things, here are the critical things, here's a plan to help you develop a capital improvements program, and then it's up to the commissioners to start identifying how to fund those projects. What projects do we start with? Do we start on the arena side? Do we start on the exhibit hall side?
It's a big lift.
There is so much going on right now that we are building towards April, so I'm just very pleased to know that we're going to have some opportunities to have some really, really good discussions.
For sure. Well, stay tuned, right?
Yes,
All right.
please.
Thanks for being here today.
It's always a pleasure.
All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Good luck today with your consultants.
Thank you.
All right, take care. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of City Current.
For more information on what was discussed in this episode of City Current, visit bismarcknd.gov or call 701-355-1300. If you have suggestions, comments, or issues you would like addressed in future episodes, contact us at info@freetv.org. This program airs on Government Access, Channel 2 and 602 in HD, or on Radio Access 102.5 FM. It's also available as a podcast on radioaccess.org and as a video viewing link at freetv.org. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of City Current.